Okay, so this is like a little conversation type thingy on what we, a bunch of people that went to university slash go to university, all that jazz, think about university. So I'm Shilvio, and I've got two other people here with me. Introduce yourselves,
I'm
please.
Charlie.
I'm Katie.
All right. And I attended the University of Wisconsin-Madison for my undergraduate, and now I'm at Iowa State University. And Charlie, what's your situation deal like?
I just graduated 2 weeks ago from University of Wisconsin-Madison as well. And Katie, you can.
Yeah, I was at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee for a year and a half, and I'm in the process of transferring to University of Wisconsin-Washington County.
Okay, well, I guess that's kind of interesting. Why are you transferring from Milwaukee to Washington County? What's the
Yeah.
difference?
Well, it's not really a transfer because of the schools. It's a transfer more of surrounding circumstance. I used to live in Milwaukee and I had an apartment with my ex-boyfriend, but we didn't stay together and I lost my job, so I couldn't keep my apartment there and had to move back in with my parents in West Bend. And so if I want to continue going to school without commuting, I figured I would just transfer up here and go to school part-time for now.
Hmm. So I guess now we're going to take the first small divergence. You brought up working and doing university at the same time, and
Yeah.
I've got some opinions on I guess that entire situation. Um, I'm technically working now. It's all a technicality. I know you've actively worked, and Charlie, did you work when at university?
Yep, I still have a job working here.
So can you tell
And
me what that's like?
uh, well, luckily for me, it was actually fairly flexible. I worked for the university, so they were kind of aware of the fact that I would be doing class stuff and allowed me to build my schedule around that. I know that's not the situation for a lot of people, but I more or less got to choose my schedule most of the time, which was really nice. However, it did sometimes like I would take more time than I probably should have, and at times I also had less than I should have.
What do you mean by
So,
less? Sorry.
like one time I missed a meeting or a staff meeting, and I didn't have any shifts for like a month straight, and it was I easily could have when I didn't. So
So like, how did that impact your classes, the academic part? So I know that you were able to schedule around that for, I guess, the most part, but that still does have some impact on, your ability to do studying or um, things of that nature.
yeah, I mean, unless you're a piece of shit like me and you don't study that much, but I definitely get like I was a supervisor this past year, and um, there were students where they actually either quit or just changed their occupation because they didn't have enough time for studying,
Hmm.
and so they'd work like no hours or very few hours or just leave, which sucked because it was we were short staffed all the time by the end of the year, like half normal capacity and everything. But you know, overall, myself as a student, I did not have any trouble managing school and work.
Well, Charlie, you're extremely lucky. You're incredibly bright without having to put much effort into school. You can just go to class occasionally, do your homework occasionally, and then still get really good grades. Like the average student isn't like that.
I, I'm not a great example, but at the same, I wouldn't say I'm extremely bright. Like I
I don't
wasn't
know.
top of the class or anything, but I
No,
didn't
but
do
you've
bad
you've
either.
still managed to maintain your school uh, status with very little. Well, I don't mean to like say this in a mean way, with not the average amount of effort that most students have to do to succeed and get, like, you constantly are telling me that you're getting above average on your exams that you barely studied for, because I know you're playing games with me. And
I mean,
you are
at the same
working a lot
time,
too, so
yeah, I would say I'm not like everybody.
yeah. You're I think you're a little above average in the amount of effort you have to put in, well, lack of effort, I suppose, you have to put in to succeed, though.
Yeah.
So how was talking to you now, Katie? Um, what was your job slash school experience like? Was there, I guess, competition between the two, for energy, time, and again, like with the studying and
Yeah.
performance?
Well, again, I'm not the average student in a different way because I'm dealing with some pretty debilitating mental illness that prevented me from doing too much at once. So I was never working and going to class at the same time because I couldn't handle one or the other full time, let alone both of them. Um, so it never really interfered for me because I couldn't have done both at the same time anyways. So I know I didn't really have to deal with that so much. Um, Not nearly as much as Charlie, but I imagine it would have been really difficult because I'm like Charlie in that I'm not good at studying because I didn't have to much. Charlie, believe me, I know you. Uh, I'm not good at studying because I didn't have to do it much in high school, even when I should have. Because I don't know, I didn't have to put in as much effort as a lot of other kids did to do well. But then I, had a downward spiral mid high school and started doing really poorly. But that's a whole other can of worms.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we're really just gonna
Yeah,
jump into that. So
yeah, no.
back to the actually, I've asked you guys, and I'll divulge my experience with that. So in my undergraduate, I didn't have to do any work while um, taking classes and whatnot. However, and at the graduate level, you have some amount of assistantship that goes on. We've got a TA-ship. You've definitely had TAs.
Hmm.
Um, you can be an RA, or you can have a fellowship. So fellowships, of course, are like the number one thing. You want a fellowship.
Hmm.
Fellowships essentially are you are working on your work because there's funding directly supporting you as a human being. So if you ever heard of the uh, NSF GRFP, that's a fellowship. They fund the student, so the student just does what the student wanted to do. Of course, you've got a research plan, so TAs are like you get paid to work for the professor with respect to TAing a class, being the teacher's assistant. That typically can entail you grading papers, actually teaching some classes, which I need to do, and I guess being a right-hand man, so to speak.
Hmm.
RA-ship is the second best, so TA-ship people typically think is the third best. RA-ship, which is what I have right now, is a research assistantship where the professor has projects, professor or the researcher with the project. Um, I think this is the best one because you get hands-on experience um, doing what the person you're kind of admiring or aspiring to be is doing. And I find it pretty fun. He's like, okay, hey, build this for me. And you're like, I don't know how to build it. And you think, yeah, well, I guess I should know how to build this. And then you go and do it. Um, of course, all these positions aren't 100%. So the RA ship that I have right now is 50%, which means 50% of the time I should be working on my PI's work, and 50% of the time I should be devoting to me. So you break down the me part again into my research, what I will be studying, and my classwork or coursework. Um, so that second question that asked KD, how does it like interfere? I asked Charlie the same thing. Is there like an overlap that you have to balance? For me, it doesn't seem like there is something I have to balance because I'm so invested in what I study, such that what I research or what I'm working to do is so tightly connected to what I have to do for the classes. So if I took a physics class, the application, all of the material I learn in the physics class is directly applicable to the model building that I'm doing for work, which is pretty neat. Um, so I don't really think too much about that, but deadlines are a bigger problem for me because you've got classwork that has deadlines, my research has deadlines, and my professor's work has deadlines as well. So I think that's
Hmm.
how there's a little split, right? Then I know, or at least I think I know. Uh, when you're working the job that you had, Charlie, um, were there like peak times, times like where your classwork kind of slipped a little bit to help the work, or does that really not happen?
Um, I think that the time that was like probably the most stressful for some people was when um, during finals week, because people are moving out and stuff, and you've got your own finals.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, once again, like I probably study like 2 to 3 hours per final, and that's not usually average. Like I know a lot of people who need like 4 or like 12. I don't know. That was crazy to me, but
Yeah, most of my time spent preparing for finals is panicking about finals rather than studying for them.
Oh, okay.
That's just me, though.
yeah. I also think it depends on how much you work.
Yeah.
Like I think I probably worked 20 hours a week at most
Oh.
during the year.
You're making me
Like,
sound like a workaholic. Not that workahol is a drink you can drink like alcohol is.
well,
Bummer.
yeah, like, and part of that was just because there wasn't that much available.
Right.
And during like a move out week, since I wasn't going to class, I could work as much as like 40 to 50. But like, not during the school year, I definitely work usually at least 40 hours with some overtime. So it's like during the school year, it's just the way classes tend to line up. There's not as many opportunities to work that much. But once it's the year's off, that's when I usually get a lot of work in because it's like I don't have anything better to do than work.
So do you think, I guess here's the first good question. Do you think university is set up to allow students to work, I guess, a normal working cycle and do their academic work? Or do you think they're at conflict with each other? So do you think the
Um,
university should be trying to support you doing both at the same time? Or should it more allow you to focus on your studies?
Mm,
uh,
No, Katie,
I don't know.
you go first. I
well,
think you sound ready for it.
I don't know. I think it would probably depend on what you're trying to do at the same time and what classes you're taking. It's probably different for every person because everybody manages their time differently and everybody has different priorities. And some people are also there's a lot of people that are older now going back to college who already have families and full-time jobs who are trying to fit school in the middle instead of vice versa, like the young kids who are trying to fit work in between their classes. So I think it has the potential to be, good or bad for different people. I think it's really kind of a case by case thing sometimes with this. So, Charlie.
I think it depends on like the intensity of the university. and depends on how much time you need for studying. I
Mhm.
definitely think it's possible to work alongside doing your work, but I am never someone that got a lot out of cramming all day and all night.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah.
And I also think that it depends on what your major is. I never found that environmental science was super difficult as a major, but I know that pretty much everybody I worked with that was in engineering was always like, yeah, this project took me 9 hours this Sunday. It's like, oh, wow. And that's kind of like a unusual thing for me. I mean, I definitely had projects that took me like, you know, 20 hours, but like at the same time, that was something fairly consistent, especially computer science students, where it's like, oh, there's a little bug in the coding or something like that, and everything has to be redone, or you fix one thing and break another. I think different majors are more difficult in college, whereas like environmental science felt like everything was fairly connected to each other, and as long as you understood the concepts and you could form an argument, you knew how to write papers, you could reliably, like if you didn't study at all, you could probably at least get a D or a C. And I studied, so I could usually guarantee myself a B most of the time.
All right, so I'm gonna move the conversation away from, I guess, that exposition of maybe getting for people that are watching slash listening, you know, the way we talk about things, and move into more of the real topic. So, um, thanks, Katie, for bringing that up in the very beginning. I just had to riff off of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you hear something that's kind of interesting and you want to like make a little branch and divert the conversation for a bit, that's totally cool. So just like write it down or take a note and then definitely bring it up. Um, don't feel bad about changing the topic a bit. 'Cause
Yeah,
this
yeah.
can go on for a long time.
Hmm.
All right, so I guess the first real thing we're gonna start at the beginning, getting into university, and what do you think the university is looking for in their students? So I study soil science. Soils are it's an amalgamation of things. It's the intersection of the atmosphere, lithosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and if you want to do anything in the soils, it's a little bit more complex because they're competing, I guess, areas of study that you need to consider together. The university, I'll say, is like soil. It's complex. It responds to what the individual parts do and are. Um, I'd like to throw soils into everything. If you this is the way it's going to be. Um, um, but starting at the beginning, right? Entry level. If you're a freshman or not even a freshman, you're a high school student. What do you think you're going to get out of university?
I mean, obviously, everybody today is there's this huge obligation to go to university just so you can find a job that'll pay enough for you to live. Because the cost of living and the cost of university have raised so much, while minimum wage and average payment and things have not raised. So it's harder and harder to find a good paying job that will support the lifestyle that kids today are getting used to. Uh, so
That
it's yeah. Sorry,
or
what?
like the cost of healthcare
Oh God,
and stuff
yeah,
like
that
that.
too. It's so much more costly to live today, and then it's harder and harder to pay for it, especially without a degree. So parents are really pressuring their kids, and society is pressuring the kids to go to college, get whatever degree you can, and find something in that category that you can make a living off of, which is extremely unrealistic. There's like it was so difficult to be a high school student. Everybody's, where are you going to go to college? What are you going to do? What are you planning on? What degree do you want? Like you're 18 years old and you're supposed to know what you want to do with the rest of your life, and you're supposed to make decisions based on that.
So I've got
It,
a small question. So I this comes up a- time and time again. It
Mhm.
might annoy the crap out of some people. Um, but when I'm writing or reading a paper, we always make sure we define our terms and definitions. So you,
Mhm.
uh, what I would call blamed society, but I don't know what society means to you. I probably have a different concept than you. I'm convinced Charlie may have a slightly different concept. So what do you think society is, and how do you place them in this push to get you to go to university?
Well, I guess I view society as the people that are looking at me and judging what I do and don't do. So, I mean, a lot of it is your own family. Because every time you Thanksgiving, you're sitting around the table with your family members. Everybody's, well, you're at that age now. Let's put the focus on you, and let's see what mistakes you're gonna make this time. But then also just there's a lot. Media has a huge influence on kids right now. I mean, how many people voted for Harambe just because of memes
Oh,
in the last
disgusting.
election? So media is just there's all these commercials for different colleges where they're trying to make college look like this amazing fun thing, and for most kids it is because they go drinking and they experiment and they have fun with their friends, but then that's not college. That's not getting a degree to help you in life. That's just what you're trying to do on the side to keep yourself sane. So I guess I define society as just everybody who sees you and influences you in any way.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I think the role of society in this is just like it's kind of set up where it's kind of a problem with employment. Really, is you want the best possible employees, and so anything you can do to get an advantage, like going to college, getting an education, becomes more and more necessary as more and more people enter the field because now something that might have been exceptional a while ago, it's like, well, there's so many people that it's like it's pretty likely that there's someone else with those same qualifications. And you know, you take that up to a larger scale, and now college is basically a requirement. And I think it's going to shift until the point where grad school is also a requirement.
Yeah. And Charlie, you
It's,
brought up like there's so much competition now too. Everybody's competing with each other. You're looking at themselves versus everybody else. Oh, he got a whatever on his ACT. He's going to get into a better college. I have to do better. I have to do better. I have to do better than him. I have to get this because he's got it and somebody else can do it, so why can't I? And there's everybody's looking at everybody else instead of themselves.
so I had a small conversation with a friend that finished university a year earlier than me. She's too smart. She could have been on today. Maybe she'll pop in on another day. Um, so she finished a math degree in 3 years and is now working as a statistician for a research group up here in New York. I guess up there in New York. And she performed way better than me. She finished faster and just got tons of experience, and now is applying to a graduate school program. And was kind of concerned, like, oh, am I gonna do well? Am I gonna actually get accepted? Turns out, and this I know this is a sample size of one, and then I'll validate it in quotes with a sample size of another one. That's just poking fun at my horrible statistics. Um, but in my experience, the having the strong GRE didn't really matter. Having amazing writing skills, it's useful. Um, but what really mattered when I was trying to get to my position now, not too sure. The guy that I'm working for now, he is kind of similar to me. Um, Halfway crazy, which is a really good thing in our field. He's trying to challenge, or he's actively challenging, uh, some functional theories, which is rare, especially in our field. Um, and I've started adopting some of his positions, not because of what he said, but more because I really disagree with some of the current theories or frameworks. Anyways, the other half is that there's another guy in our lab that just hopped on. He was a graduate. He was an undergraduate student, and now he got a little offer. Hey, do you want to come and join our lab group? So he went straight from his undergraduate. He was working with us, and then he essentially got offered the position to join us before doing an ACT or sorry, before doing a GRE, before letters of recommendation. He doesn't have any of that stuff, but he's kind of been brought on to our lab group already. He's just going to be going through the motions now.
Mhm.
So I was wondering if there's anything analogous to that, for before that, when you're going from your high school to your university just as a freshman, are there any little loopholes that just pull you up? And if you think there are, what do you think should be done about those?
Oh,
Oh.
Buying your way into college like Jared Kushner.
Is that a bad thing?
That is absolutely a bad thing
Why?
because, okay, so let's say you need to be extremely intelligent, you need to have a high GPA, great SAT or ACT scores to get into college. And that's because of people wanting the best of the best to get into college or to get a job. Well, if you just bypass all that competition because you have a shit ton of money from your parents, then that ruins it for everybody that actually worked to get into that position.
Mm. One thing I kind of feel bad about, there were so many people that I knew that were, I mean, I in my opinion, I'd call them tryhards because I'm lazy and didn't do anything with my high school career. People who were in sports and clubs and did all sorts of activities and volunteer work and had all this other stuff to put on their, I don't know what you call it, application for college. And I literally had a crappy essay that I wrote in a class because I had to, that I proofread like once, and I had my really, really crummy GPA and my ACT score, and that's all I had to put on my application. And I don't know. I feel like if I had done more, I would have had, well, obviously I would have had more to put on there, but I don't know. I don't know how much that influences your application process. I don't know how much they actually look at what you did with your career as a high school student, or if you just, did well on tests and got a good ACT score. Because I had a really, really bad GPA. I did nothing, and I had a 27 ACT.
Well,
And
that's starting to beg the question, what does the university want from you? Right?
yeah,
So the university has these entry requirements. They say, okay, you need to have X GPA, you need to have X ACT, your essay needs to be this on some scale. What one of my I guess what is he? I guess the president of our department or the chair of our department. You can't be president of a department. That's so weird. Anyway, what the chair of our department said is that we're not trying to outright say you can come in or you can't come in with that stuff. Those are just slim down the pickings because there are lots of people out there. But
hmm
what do you think the university is really looking for then?
Well, I remember during the application process, our guidance counselors showed us this website where all of the acceptances from each college was on a graph that showed what each student's ACT score was versus what their GPA was. And it was a pretty wide arrangement. So there were people with like really, really crappy GPAs and ACT scores that got in, and then people with amazing ones that got in. So I don't know. I remember looking at it and thinking, well, what did those people with the crappy GPAs and ACT scores do? How did they get in? And why were they accepted the same as somebody with a, I don't know, a 35 and a 4.0? What exactly was the college looking for, or what did they find in these people that somehow made them equivalent in being accepted? So I have no idea what they actually want if you can get in with so many different things. I suppose it depends on the college and who's on the board that really decides. But I don't know. It seems flawed, but I don't know how.
What was the question? What are universities looking for
Yeah,
in
what's the
people?
actual requirement, or what are they aiming to capture?
Personally, I think at least in some schools, they're looking for the next big name. The people are like, oh, this person went here. That's why you want to go here. You'll get a great education, become successful like them.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing.
I think there is something to be said for diversity too. Colleges want diversity, maybe not so much because they actually care about it, but so that they can say, look at how diverse our college is. Look at all these different types of students we have, and they're all succeeding or they're all failing equally, or it doesn't matter where you come from, or kind of thing. Just I don't know.
Yeah, they want to promote diversity. I think it's like the thing where they need certain people to take pictures of on their websites and commercials.
Yeah, there needs to be a certain number of different ethnicities in the stock photos on college websites for them to feel like they're succeeding.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Oh man, I wish actually I can link to it in the description if I can find it. That is. There is a really mm, interesting photo. They ended up photoshopping a random person into a magazine cover one year, and it was pretty funny. If I can find it, I'll definitely link it in the description. But it was kind of sad. Um,
Well, I know there's lots of like tax deductions too, because I think certain workplaces can get tax deductions if they meet certain diversity requirements. So colleges are probably the same. They probably have to have a certain number of like Hispanic students and Latino, or I just said Latino and Hispanic. I mean, you know what I mean? Lots of different ethnicities and backgrounds to qualify for certain grants and tax reductions. So that's probably why they ask you what race you are on tests, and also because there's certain like scholarships and things, but that could play part in it. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of societal things to it in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people may be at less of an advantage, or like may have a more difficult time getting into college due to a background thing or societal story, like where you came from, the high schools that were nearby you or the one you went to could have a significant impact on your education, how well you do, your GPA, stuff like that, and that can impact where you end up going
oh,
in your life.
Small question then. Do you think it's worth the university trying to correct for this? So when I say correct for it, I mean, suppose I did an experiment trying to um, ascertain the amount of soil organic matter on Farmer Bland's field. So I measure, I take samples, say every 10 meters in a grid format, and then I realize that the readings I get back for labile carbon are slightly skewed right. So skewed right, it's not a bad thing. It's just it's just what the distribution of carbon looks like. That's just the landscape of the carbon. Do you think the university should correct for that skewed right in their data? So for me, would I go back and sample in areas where I know that there will be more or less carbon depending on less? Right, skewed right is that way. So should I go and sample in places where I know there's more carbon to try to normalize my sampling curve? Or should I let it,
Well,
the data be as untouched as possible?
I mean, that depends on whether you're trying to normalize your sample data or normalize the underlying issue that's causing the samples to be low or right or whatever, skewed in some way. Like, does that mean just sampling different colleges in different places for different results, or actually fixing the issue and admitting more students to correct the sample?
Oh no, that's
Yeah,
that's
that's
begging the question, right?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about that? Because it seems like there are quotas that are put on to try to correct this. Do you think that's something universities should be trying to do, or do you think it should be more mm, representative?
I don't know. I personally think that getting into college should be on your merits, not because of your race or your background or your mental illness or whatever. I mean, if you can't manage to get into college on your own, then you probably wouldn't succeed in college anyways. So you shouldn't be accepted just because of, I don't know, just because of your race. I'm not saying that
You don't have to.
quotas are always a bad thing,
When is it
but
a good thing? Sorry for, hopping, but
no, yeah, I know you have to play devil's advocate. I don't know. Charlie, do you have any input?
I don't like the idea behind the quota. I do think it's a good idea to like give students a chance, though. I
Mhm.
think maybe it shouldn't be so difficult to get into university, and maybe I think probably something limiting students from getting in more than just people not having the GPA is just the cost.
Oh God,
And you
yes,
see
that's
how it's like the cost of college has gone up much faster than the cost of living, and it's not really clear why.
I've got a few insights, and I'm not sure how, in quotes, undergrads will take it. So the cost of research materials has gone up. Um, the amount of funding for our activities has gone down. Um, so one of my friends and I guess my mentor and the one back in Wisconsin, we all had the same concerns when it comes to soft money versus hard money. So soft money, actually, I'll ask you guys, do you think you have an idea of what the differences may be just based on their names?
I mean, kind of.
Kind of. So
mm,
go for it.
I feel like it could be one of a couple things, like outside funding and money you already have, or like soft money being like scholarships and hard money being like savings or something. I'm not sure what you're referring to though.
No, that's it. That's pretty close. Yeah, so soft money is money that you get from grants, from fellowships, and hard money is money that is guaranteed to come in, like money from tuition, money from donors that is in a trust fund or something.
well. I think the larger stemming issue here is that not enough money in general is going to education and research. I think a lot of the money that's floating around in the country is going to the wrong places. This is my personal opinion that I think we spend far too much on military
Well, you don't have
and not
to,
enough on education.
for
Yeah.
the record, you don't really need to qualify to the extent of it's just my opinion. Well, of course it's your opinion.
Well, okay, yeah.
Yeah, don't waste the time. Just say it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, yeah, I think we're spending far too much on military
yeah.
that we don't really need, and wars that we don't need to be part of or have started in the first place, instead of education, because education has the potential to solve all the problems in the world. Pretty much. The education is the foundation of everything that can or can't be. It is the most important thing to educate the youth and the adults who don't already know everything that they should or could. Education should be accessible to everybody, regardless of your background, your financial status, the country you live in. It should be something that is free and easy to attain, or maybe not free, cheaper. It's way too expensive. Everybody should have access to education, and
There's also,
I cannot stress that enough.
like, there's so much data about how much it reduces crime rates,
God.
higher education,
Yeah.
and just keeping
Education.
people in school. Like, I think it is a bigger issue for people who can't finish high school or even middle school. It's like the kind of jobs you can get nowadays because of that are just so much worse. You almost end up doing other things to kind of make up for that gap. Like, you either work an obscene number of hours, multiple jobs, and just give up any hope of free time, or you sell drugs.
But yes, more money towards education means cheaper research materials, which means cheaper tuition, which means more people go to college, which means more education. It feeds into itself, and the changes just need to be made, but I have a feeling they won't, because it's much easier to spend all the money on tanks and shit we don't need for wars we don't need to start, and then actually teaching people that most of that is unnecessary and in some cases just completely wrong. Patriotism is cheaper than free thinking.
Well, more fear mongering even. I think
yeah.
a lot of the spending we do is spending for the sake of keeping people safe from something that doesn't pose as much of a threat to them as they think it does.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the attacks on American soil, wow, this really diverted from education, but most of the attacks on American soil are caused by Americans, not people who we could really stop. It's like we're fighting a concept. The war on terror is not actually a physical thing. And I think there's an issue from like how afraid people are of that versus how much it actually impacts them in their daily life and how at risk they are and feel, where the biggest enemy we could have to us is ourselves and perception and sympathizers, turning people away from us when they have nowhere else to go and stuff like that. And I think that if people perhaps understood this, did more research, were better informed, had less things that were more if news was less about trying to get people to watch your stuff and actually providing useful information. I don't know, because people don't want to sit down and read scholarly articles and stuff like that. They want something that is enticing.
They want to be.
And I think that's an underlying problem. Well, it's like what draws in your attention more. It's like issues in the Middle East, rebuilding, or top 10 reasons why your neighbor might be trying to kill you, or some shit like that. Like, I can't even think of a good example off the top of my head. Like, what people is going to click on.
Yeah, I'm guilty of this too. I'd rather watch a turtle trying to eat a strawberry than what's going on in Syria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And people don't know what's going on.
I have no idea. I'm extremely uneducated on this. I am so guilty. I'm such a hypocrite about all of this, as a lot of people are. I want these problems to go away, but I don't know how to fix them. I want to be informed, but I don't want to watch the news. I want college tuition to go down, but I don't have any money to put into fucking funding for colleges. It's difficult.
You can't pay the taxes that would be required to have better educations available for people. I still think that should be a pretty high priority for everybody. I don't think that there's any argument that a better educated populace is a negative thing.
I mean, it's negative for the politicians that want to line their pockets.
Do you really think that... Actually, well, last point on the topic, and we're gonna go run back to the university.
Right?
Do you really think the end all is to, I guess, put your opinion out there and like make it how everybody else leads their life? Or do you think it's more of how should I best serve this large group of people? So, politicians get voted in by people. Is the objective of the politician to best represent the people or to impress their opinion on the people?
I think
Oh,
they'd like you to think that uh, you are their only interest, but re-election and keeping that position is their only interest, or profit maximizing, keeping um, other people of higher status of that status, keeping that money flowing. And I think that we're definitely like a very top-down controlled society.
it's less about supporting the people than distracting and pleasing them enough for them not to notice what else is going on.
Ah,
Yeah, making them think that you're doing something for them when you're working for yourself.
I don't know. There
Mhm.
was I don't know who to attribute this quote to or idea to. They say that the best government is a government that you can't tell is operating. How do you feel about
Exactly.
that?
I don't agree with
You
that.
don't agree with that. Interesting.
Well, if you're doing things right, people shouldn't know you're doing anything at all.
Is that entirely true? Things like, Medicaid, Social Security, things like this. This is something that if you need it, you want it to be in your life, you want to notice it.
Mhm.
And I don't see, like, I feel like we shouldn't just, hope it's operating in the background. We should know the information. We should be able to see what's going on and be able to react and cast our votes based on how people are acting, what people are doing with the money that we're giving them through tax payments and things like that. Like, I think it's very unhealthy to be like, oh, the government is so awful. Let's just keep them out of our lives. We don't want anything to do with them. It's like, no, it would be better if we actually, we have some kind of participation in it. We know what's going on. And so if shit's going awry, then we can do something about it. I think that people being afraid of government don't realize that we have a lot of power in choosing who's in it.
Yeah.
And having more information through better education, better news sources is probably the best way to control and influence who is in it
Okay, so I
Which-
think
and help
I'm
ourselves.
going to leave the news bit out of it because I think that's worth its own discussion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say we strayed pretty far.
round two, right?
Yeah, we
So
definitely.
I'll write
It's
that
hard not
down.
to.
Yeah, it is hard not to.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so no, well, that's really worth its own discussion. So I'll definitely raise it, and there will be a link in the description dun, once something like that actually happens. So I'm going to hop back to the university question, and it's I guess the melding of the last two topics, or the last topic, and what we were really trying to be talking about. Research or the university and politics. So, do you think there's some kind of agreement between the university and people doing research? Should the university be trying to influence what politicians are doing and saying? Um, what should that connection be? What should it look like? And I'll start with you, Casey.
Close,
Katie.
Katie.
Katie. I'm getting close here. Almost.
I already forgot the question.
Yeah, okay. So
Edit that out.
I'll try. I don't edit anything out, by the way. It's all there, all raw. I hate listening to my voice
Awesome.
again, so I'm really not gonna enjoy editing because it just really frustrates me. Anyway,
That's extremely fair. I would hate to do it too.
um, What do you think the university's role is in politics or in government? Should the university try to influence uh, legal actions? Should it try to um, steer its research in a particular way to suit somebody else or an outside person, or should they do their own thing? What do you think they should do? Because politics is
Well, I
rampant,
think
right?
universal. Oh God, yeah. I think research from universities should be. It shouldn't be influenced by politics. What needs to be researched or what can better all of humanity or better our knowledge of our surrounding world, etc. I think that's what should be researched, not something that a politician says, "Oh, you need to produce some stats on this for a debate or something like that." I don't think politics should influence research, but I do think research should influence politics, because so many people still are denying complete facts like global warming, but that leads back to a whole lack of education in general. But I do think research and the facts that we know and are discovering daily should influence the way our society is run and the way our government is run. Um, so I suppose that's what I have to say about that. Charlie?
So I think I disagree. I think that they should work together. One should kind of mediate the other. I think that research can uh, and should have an influence on what happens in politics, and I think that politically motivated research should also be a thing. However, I think it's difficult when you get into the field of politics not to be biased, and when you go into research, you kind of need to be unbiased, or it'll be harmful to your data. So
You meant,
they
oh,
have an important
yeah.
relationship.
You mentioned mediation. Um, I'm curious, as a researcher, what kind of mediation are you thinking about? Or what might that look like?
Um, I guess just where taxpayer money goes. Um, I was more thinking the opposite direction, but in general, like deciding how much of our money we want to dedicate to a certain subject and how important a certain thing is to us.
Hmm.
Like maybe a kind of more for fun type research topic might get a little bit less of our funding than something that could have a significant impact on the greater good of humanity. I'm not wording this well, but you kind of get what I mean.
I think I do. So it's not really an argument, um, but we don't know, or at least I don't know, if what I'm doing, the research I'm performing, is really that amazing, or it's really that great. So to me, it's extremely important. I can go on and write you a 20-page or 50-page essay. Heck, I could write you a book on what I think is important to actually study. But maybe you don't think continuous landforms are very important. Maybe you don't think uh, prairie restoration is extremely thrilling. Uh, Maybe you're not particularly interested in the usage of irregular verbs, and you don't really know what kind of good that has for society. So I doubt things like that. I mean, maybe if you're a grower, you'd be interested in continuous landforms, as that's kind of what I'm studying. And that's essentially a idea in soil science. How do you effectively map continuous entities that have effective discrete impacts from other objects? Um,
Yeah, it sounds important, but also extremely boring to the average person.
right. So
Well,
how
No
do you
offense.
You don't need a whenever you say no offense, this is a little aside. I'm thinking of the best way that you could possibly be offending me. So don't even
I mean,
try.
so, well, no, I know this is like really important to you, but I think obviously to the average person, studying soil and prairie restoration and all that sounds really boring.
Right.
I
So
think
like
that
that kind of question, when Charlie, you say that that's something that may be beneficial. I'm wondering, how do you actually involve people in something so obscure that it may ordinarily kind of be, as Katie says, boring.
uh, I think that through education we can help people realize how important some of these things actually are. Um, like prairie restoration, how that has an impact on agriculture and similar such things. I think that maybe if people understood better why it's important, and we could prove that through our research, then that would be for the benefit of everybody. But when people don't know why,
Yeah.
and people don't know what, you know,
I mean, for the uneducated layman who who hasn't spent years in environmental science and soil research, that would sound weird and unnecessary and boring. I personally understand how incredibly important that is, but it's hard to get people who don't know about something excited about it. It's just kind of human nature. I don't know anything about football, so it bores the hell out of me.
but
Um,
there's also the curiosity factor. If
yeah,
you don't know about something, depending on what it is, it could be intriguing to you.
yeah. I have no interest in football, but I know what you mean. I mean, certain people are just never going to be interested in certain things. It's
Yeah.
I'm never going to be interested in sports. And I don't know, maybe I don't know, my stepbrother's never going to be interested in soil. It's
Or anything other than vaping. Sorry.
vaping in his
Cruel hit.
low blow.
Wait, so well, I mean, there is research out there that I think is just kind of dumb. Even me. Not saying that I love all research equally. I clearly don't. I think some is completely unnecessary. Um, and frankly, not very interested in reading the papers, even though I think I can read them. But like, do you really think that it's worth all of that effort to, you know, be that involved in what's going on, to have that, I guess, personal connection, knowing where where your tax dollars are going in terms of research? Do you think that's really feasible?
I think it's important.
It is important, but it's not realistic. You're never gonna know where every cent of your taxpayer money goes because there's so many different places. And yeah, there is some research out there that I'm sure is completely useless and insignificant, but it's still happening.
Or
And vice
bullshit.
versa. There's a lot of stuff that's super important that isn't being researched. It's all about moderation, I suppose. I think people should be more open-minded and understanding that not all their taxpayer dollars are going to exactly what they want, but a lot of it is necessary, and some of it's going to be unnecessary bullshit. But a lot of it is still a matter of opinion. Some people might think that soil research is bullshit. Well, I think that military funding is mostly bullshit, at least how much of it there is. It's I think people just need to be more educated, open minded, and understanding with their money because you can't control it to an extent.
There's a small argument against your disagreement to military spending, with military spending. Um,
Hmm.
One of the big ones, say, remote sensing got a huge boost from the Cold War. We wanted to be able to get information from other parts of the world that are risky to actually enter
Hmm.
physically, and we ended up
Yeah.
launching a really awesome space program that now allows us to monitor deforestation in,
Yeah.
I don't know,
No,
Brazil or
I
something
don't
like
at
that.
all. I don't at all think that 100% military funding is bullshit. I know a lot of it is important. A lot of it does go to protecting our country and new research and things. But I don't think 50, 60 cents of every dollar should go to it. I think everything should have relatively equal shares in how much how much funding it gets. I think like NASA, military, education, everything, it should all be relatively equal. I do think there should be military funding. Just I think we have too much of it currently. I think more of what is going to the military should be going to other places that are less fortunate in their funding amounts. I don't at all think that we should cut all military funding because I know a lot of amazing things have come from it. And it does help keep all of us safe. But I think the amount currently is excessive.
So then, what? Hopping back, that was a small diversion, and again, that warrants its own discussion. I mean, I guess everything
Mhm.
really does warrant its own discussion. This is a bit
Yeah.
exploratory. For the record, we've reached the 1 hour mark. So if you're getting a little tired, which I doubt you are, um, we're just gonna keep going until I reach the end of this list, as I know things are branching out. Anyways,
Mhm.
what needs to be researched, or what do you think should be researched? What should the university, not now looking at people, but looking at their products? What should the university be putting out? Um, Charlie, do you have any thoughts?
Huh. It's hard to say any one specific thing with that. Um, I think probably one of the most important fields of research that we have in universities is engineering, but also, I guess, just there's no real singular thing. Um, I think something that is just very personal to me about what it doesn't get enough attention is just how everything influences everything else as much as it does. But again, I'm biased on that. So I think that all problems can kind of be linked. And I don't know if there's a lot of discussion about that.
So you say that engineering stuff needs to be researched. Is there anything in particular that, like, what does the university have on it than, say, an engineering firm who is essentially dedicating all of their time to doing engineering? What's the advantage in the university as an entity actually doing that? Making an effort. Suppose they were making a concerted effort. What do you think the difference is between a firm making a concerted effort versus a university's College of Engineering making a concerted effort?
I think it's something that focuses all of their energy on engineering. Um, they're going to look for people who already know how to do it, but people who are like in the university, the way they would think about it is more so getting people to that point where they can do it. So it's like university kind of prepares you for what you need to do. Whereas, when you have a job or position, you already are kind of expected to know how to do some of things, or you will receive training, but ideally you'd have that background if you're going to be doing something that monumental.
I don't know. If say if you went to a trade school, you could pull off the same thing, right? So uh Katie, if you didn't go to university and you were interested in something else, would you seek training somewhere else? Or would you just say, okay, it's not really worth my time and I won't even pursue this thing?
honestly, it depends on what I have it in my mind to pursue and how passionate I am about it. Passion about what you're doing. Passion should always be the driving force into your education and your life path. You should be pursuing something you're passionate about. And I personally am not going to put in a whole bunch of effort to something I don't care about.
Okay, so I'm really interested in food and all that jazz. Suppose I worked at a botanic garden in the Washington, D.C., and I was so interested in the soil there that I started learning as much as I could about soil science so I can be a better pedologist. Is my effort at the Botanic Garden in DC the same kind of effort that I'd be putting forward toward if I were at the university? So what's the advantage at the university if information is technically free, right? You can go online. The information is all there. Um, and in both scenarios, you have experts. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
what do you actually gain? What do you think you're gaining from the university? What does it have to offer over not going to the university?
A degree, prestige, like reliability. Apparently, a piece of paper saying that you spent a certain number of hours is more worth just a number of certain hours. You have to have proof that you spent a lot of money and went to these classes and did all your homework. Everything is all about the degree. So if you don't have that piece of paper saying you did all this work, then, well, boo-hoo, nobody's going to listen to you.
But if you're an expert in the field, maybe. I think there's a lot of, I don't know if we realize how many people, especially people in higher political positions, don't have a college education.
They
But,
should.
You know.
Wait, you just said that they should. Oh wait, hold on. So let's kind of unpack that. Are you suggesting that there's some inherent benefit in the college education, yet you don't think we need it at the same time?
I don't think there should be as much pressure to get your hands on a degree and just go from there. I do think there are a lot of other benefits to going to college. Just learning things. You should always be passionate and interested to learn new things. But it shouldn't just be all about the degree, but it is. Nobody's going to hire you without that degree. Nobody's going to listen to you without that degree. You got to have the degree to be able to be successful. That's what society is generally putting on us. It's that without a degree, screw you. Good luck.
So
I don't think it should be that way, though.
I think I'll hold that one maybe for another time. Let me write that down. But I guess the last part, what's the university trying to put out? What are the products of the university? And I guess this is like more like a listing and whether you think you can line yourself up with these products. So kind of judge yourselves. But like, what do you think the university is trying to actually spit out at the end? Charlie?
Just people prepared for these kind of things. I think that maybe not a product, but like it's a platform for people to get this kind of information. I mean, you were talking about earlier how people can just go online. It was like university is the place where we should find out how to do the research to prove if this is bullshit or not, because there's a lot of bullshit online. You know, I can write about how Barack Obama was an alien and Donald Trump is the new Messiah and he's Jesus. And, you know, I can put that on there and say it's a fact. And unless people know how to do the research, I guess in this case, there's nothing that they can say to dispute that.
Hmm.
if we're going to say that we're just going to get all of our information online. It's like, well, it came from online, so it must be true.
I think a lot of college professors are also trying to teach you how to, well, the good ones at least, are trying to teach you how to think for yourself. At the same time, they do want you to just go to class and get your degree because they know that's what's best. And that's what essentially you need to do for a lot of things. But good college professors will teach you to question things, and you need to, and college research is teaching kids how to research, how to do more than college research, how to go into the field and research there. And it really should just shape you as a person and teach you how to approach the world, how to observe it, how to research it, how to interact with it. That's what college should be mostly about, and high school too, is just teaching you and letting you figure out how you want to approach the world and how you want to see it, and how it's going to affect you.
And if the way you see the world is really fucking stupid.
That too. Like, just it should make you step back and look at yourself and think, wow, have I been a spoiled little shit my entire life? I need to take a step back, look at myself, and look at how other people look at me, and then look around me and not just at me. And just open your mind and just, as cliche as it is, fucking spread your wings. Go fly off into the beautiful adult you've grown into be. Fly free.
So, I have been thinking about this kind of stuff, and I do agree. Some of the ends I think for university is just finding that next wave of people. So it's kind of expensive to do. But maybe you'll find some kind of say Albert Einstein who may not have the resources or the lab that he needs to do theoretical physics. Not that you really need a lab to do theoretical physics, but like the exposure to that. There are some brilliant people that may not ordinarily do anything with their talent if they didn't have some kind of platform.
Everybody needs the opportunity to be able to change the world if they can. I mean, not everybody has it in them, but
not everybody should change the world.
Yeah, no, not everybody should, but everybody should be able. Everybody should have the opportunities necessary and the resources to to change the world. Everybody should have the same opportunities, but that's extremely unrealistic.
No, there is this person, somebody, I'm not sure who to attribute this to. I wish I remember these kinds of things. I'm a scatterbrain like that. Anyways, they said something to the effect of if Mozart had been born before the piano was invented, we'd missed out on something. And I think of that when I just see like a random student, and I'm going to be giving them a lecture on, say, hydroponic systems. If they don't hear about hydroponic systems somewhere, but they had the potential to do something and revolutionize the field, then I guess like society kind of missed out on that.
Yeah.
So I think we'll end it kind of there. If you have any last questions, do you have any questions that you want to approach, just to leave people with, and we can write down and maybe do another video some other time?
I mean, I'm a very opinionated person, so I could do a billion more of these if you'd let me.
Are there any specific topics you think are interesting? I mean, just to leave the people watching or listening with an idea
Yeah.
or so or two.
I don't know. I suppose think not about what you can do for college. Oh, wait, fuck.
Don't
I already
even.
fucked it up. Whatever.
Jesus.
Just,
We're
I
not
don't
going
know.
to end with a quote. We're not going to end with a quote.
I was gonna change it a little. I don't know. Just stop being a little shit and look at the world around you, I guess.
I'm going to go with what's to lose.
Yeah. Why the fuck not? How about that?
Yeah, you got. I don't see how education is really such a problem. Or making
Yeah.
education available is such a thing that people don't like.
I agree with Charlie. What's not to lose? Or I mean, what's to what? Fuck.
What is
I
to
give up.
lose?
Yeah. What have you got to lose? There we go.
I for one wouldn't mind having a better educated populace.
Oh God, yes.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it there, and I'm not sure how to end a ending.
Do you have an outro?
I don't have an outro.
Oh, you didn't even plan an outro?
Just recording stuff. Like, I don't know. I guess I'll do something with my character here. He's done fishing.
I don't
He's
know.
gonna walk off into the portal thingy to leave the area. How about that?
Cool.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic.
Thank you. All right. Thanks for being